And we have breaking news. The new prosecutor in Fulton County election interference case is dropping the charges against President Trump and other co-defendants. Chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky has these breaking details for us. So, Aaron, this prosecutor took over after the previous prosecutor, Fani Willis, was disqualified for accusations of misconduct. So why is this new prosecutor looking to drop this case now?
He says that never before and hopefully never again will our country face circumstances such as these, the effort to overturn the 2020 election results. But in a 23-page decision, Peter Skandalakis, who is the head of this nonpartisan independent group that took over the case from Fani Willis, says the case is now nearly 5 years removed from President Trump's infamous phone call with the Secretary of State in Georgia asking for extra votes so that he could win the state and therefore the election. He says 2 years have passed since the grand jury returned charges, and there's no realistic prospect that a sitting president will be compelled to appear in Georgia to stand trial on the allegations in the indictment.
Hey everybody, Adam is here. So this is happening right now. Trump allegedly lost control in a federal courtroom, screaming threats at Judge Tanya Chutkan, calling her a traitor and threatening to strip her authority, forcing U.S. Marshals to physically intervene.
Mr. Julia, good morning. Julia, what are President Trump's arguments for Judge Chutkan to recuse herself from his trial?
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Good to see you. Right now, President Trump and his legal team are essentially arguing that Tanya Chutkan, the judge in this federal case who was randomly selected to oversee this case, is biased against former President Trump and a lot of the January 6th defendants. Now, they're pointing to previous cases in which she's sentenced a number of the defendants in the January 6th case and pointing to some comments she's made, including, quote unquote, blind loyalty to one person, by the way, who remains free to this day. She made those comments when sentencing someone back in October of 2022, seemingly a comment referred to former President Trump. Now, whether she actually recuses herself is yet to be seen.
Let me be absolutely clear about what this means. A sitting president of the United States stood up in federal court and threatened a federal judge. Trump told the judge he was going to take away her authority. Trump called the judge a traitor. Trump screamed profanities in a courtroom. This has never happened before in American history. Presidents do not threaten judges from the bench. Presidents do not scream at judges in federal courtrooms. Presidents do not try to intimidate judges who are ruling against them. That is not how the system works. That is not how democracy works. But Trump did it anyway.
All right, revealing new details from the first hearing in the January 6th case against Donald Trump. This is the first time we have heard from federal judge Tanya Chutkan, and she has said some really interesting things, telling Trump's lawyers that the administration of justice comes first and that he may not be able to say everything that he wants to in political speeches.
CNN's Caitlin Polans outside the court for us once again. More and more details, Caitlin. If you can, bring us all up to speed once again on what we have heard and from Judge Chutkan, what she's laid down so far.
Well, this hearing isn't over yet, but even the things that she's done so far have given limitations to Donald Trump and made clear that he needs to watch what he says publicly versus what he's learning behind the scenes as he prepares for trial, even though he's a political candidate out there giving speeches and posting on social media. One of the things that she has already said that is going to happen is that when Donald Trump learns any information he didn't know before from witness interviews that the Justice Department did, sensitive witness interviews, he's not going to be able to disclose that. That's an order from the court.
He completely lost control and started threatening a federal judge while the court was in session. And now there is serious talk about contempt charges. There is serious talk about arrest. There is serious talk about whether Trump can even be allowed back in the courtroom. What makes this even more insane is that this is not the first time Trump has done this. He did the exact same thing to Judge Arthur Engoron in the New York fraud case. He stood up and screamed at that judge too. He called him a traitor. He said, "You're fired." Trump has a pattern of threatening judges when they rule against him. He has a pattern of trying to intimidate judges with threats and insults, and now it is happening again in federal court on election interference charges. He is repeating the same behavior. He is making the same threats. He is completely out of control, and he is doing it in front of everybody in the courtroom. The timing of this outburst is absolutely critical. It follows the Supreme Court's immunity decision that stripped away Trump's main legal defense. He was already panicked about that ruling. He was already desperate about his legal position collapsing. And then Judge Chutkan denied his motion to suppress evidence. She said the evidence is going to be admitted in trial. She said Trump's legal excuses do not work. And Trump completely lost it. He could not handle being told no by a judge. He could not handle another legal defeat. He went nuclear and started threatening the judge. This shows how desperate Trump is. This shows how much he is unraveling as his legal position deteriorates. Let me walk you through exactly what happened in that courtroom and why it is so significant and dangerous. There was a hearing in the election interference case in federal court in Washington, D.C. Judge Tanya Chutkan was presiding. Trump was in the courtroom with his lawyers. The hearing was about evidence suppression, whether certain evidence could be used in trial or whether it had to be excluded. Trump wanted the evidence suppressed. He wanted his lawyers to be able to argue that the evidence was obtained illegally or improperly. But Judge Chutkan ruled against Trump. She said the evidence is admissible. She said Trump's arguments do not hold water legally. She said the evidence is coming into trial whether Trump likes it or not. And that is when Trump completely unraveled. That is when he stood up from his seat. That is when he pointed at the judge and started screaming, "You're fired, traitor. I'll have your badge." He was making direct personal threats against the judge. He was telling her he was going to take away her judicial authority. He was calling her a traitor to the country. All of this happened in an official federal courtroom while the judge was on the bench. This is not acceptable behavior. This is not legal behavior. This is criminal behavior. Trump threatened a federal judge. He tried to intimidate a federal judge. He tried to interfere with the judicial process through intimidation and threats. United States Marshals were in the courtroom because Trump is under heavy security. They immediately moved in when Trump started making threats against the judge. The Marshals physically intervened. They had to step between Trump and the judge. They had to position themselves to protect the judge from any potential harm. This is the level of chaos that Trump created in a federal courtroom. This is the level of danger that Trump's behavior represents. A sitting president of the United States was making direct threats against a federal judge, and U.S. Marshals had to step in to protect the judge's safety. Now let us talk about what is on the record about this incident. There are multiple witnesses. Courtroom staff heard everything. Court reporters were recording. Security cameras were rolling. U.S. Marshals can testify. There are probably video recordings of the incident. This is not a he said, she said situation. This is documented behavior. Multiple people heard Trump threaten the judge. Multiple people saw him point at her. Multiple people witnessed his outburst, and Trump did this in front of journalists. News of the outburst spread immediately. Video of Trump threatening the judge went viral. Millions of people have seen Trump threatening a federal judge. This is arguably the most embarrassing and damaging moment of Trump's presidency. The legal consequences could be severe. Contempt of court is a real thing. When you disrespect the court or the judge, when you threaten the judge, when you interfere with judicial proceedings, that is contempt of court. That is a crime that can result in jail time and substantial fines. Trump could be charged with contempt of court for threatening Judge Chutkan in her own courtroom while she was presiding. He could face serious criminal penalties. He could potentially be jailed. That is not hyperbole. That is the real legal reality. Federal judges take threats extremely seriously. They do not tolerate threats or intimidation, and Trump made a direct personal threat to a federal judge in an open courtroom in front of multiple witnesses and court officials. Judge Chutkan could have ordered Trump arrested immediately right there on the spot. She could have held him in contempt of court right then and there. She showed restraint by not immediately arresting Trump in the courtroom, but she could absolutely change her mind and file contempt charges. She could pursue this legally against Trump. What is particularly damaging is that this is a documented pattern of behavior. Trump did this exact same thing to Judge Arthur Engoron in New York during the civil fraud case. He made the same threats. He called Judge Engoron a traitor. He screamed, "You're fired." Trump has a documented pattern of threatening judges when they rule against him. He is a repeat offender when it comes to threatening judges. He has threatened multiple different judges. He has tried to intimidate judges with insults and personal threats, and now he is threatening judges in federal court during a major felony election interference trial. This pattern shows that Trump cannot be trusted to respect the judicial system. It shows that he cannot be controlled or managed. It shows that he is willing to commit crimes to try to intimidate judges into ruling his way. The context matters, too. Judge Chutkan denied Trump's motion to suppress evidence. She said the evidence is coming into trial. That is devastating for Trump legally because evidence is often the difference between conviction and acquittal. If the evidence comes in, Trump's chances of conviction go up dramatically. If he could suppress the evidence, he might have a chance at acquittal. But Judge Chutkan said no. She said the evidence is admissible. And that is when Trump lost control. He could not handle another legal loss. He could not handle judicial authority being exercised against him. He went nuclear and started threatening the judge. That shows how desperate Trump is. That shows how much he is unraveling as his legal position falls apart. Trump just committed what could be charged as contempt of court and threatening a federal judge. Those are serious crimes. Threatening a judge is a federal crime. Contempt of court is a federal crime. Trump could face criminal charges for this behavior. He could face jail time. He could face substantial fines. This is not a situation where Trump can just apologize and move on. He made a direct threat to a judge. He pointed at a judge and called her a traitor and said he would strip her authority. That is documented. That is witnessed. That is on record. Judge Chutkan could pursue this legally, and Trump would likely face criminal consequences. This shows Trump is completely unraveling mentally and emotionally as his legal position collapses. He cannot handle losing. He cannot handle judges ruling against him. He cannot handle the normal functioning of the judicial system. He is having meltdowns in federal courtrooms. He is threatening judges. He is screaming profanities. He is losing control of himself. This is not the behavior of someone who is stable or in control. This is the behavior of someone who is desperate, panicked, and losing it mentally. Trump is unraveling in real time. His psychological state is deteriorating. And that is concerning for everyone because Trump is still the president. He is still in power. He is still making decisions for the country. But he is clearly unstable right now. This is going to be absolutely devastating politically for Trump and for Republicans. The video is viral. Millions of people have seen Trump threatening a federal judge. Millions have seen him screaming and pointing at a judge. Millions have seen him lose control in a courtroom. Democrats are going to hammer this relentlessly in campaign ads. They are going to say Trump is unhinged. They are going to say he is unstable. They are going to say he cannot be trusted with power. They are going to say he is threatening judges and undermining the judicial system. That message is going to resonate with voters. Voters are going to see the video and think this guy is crazy. They are going to see Trump threatening a judge and think he is dangerous. That is going to drive Democratic voting. This damages Trump's relationship with judges and the judicial system going forward. Judges are not going to be sympathetic to Trump anymore. They are not going to cut him breaks. They are not going to show him leniency. Trump has threatened judges. He has shown contempt for the judicial system. He has tried to intimidate judges. Judges are going to respond by being tough on Trump. They are going to rule against him. They are going to enforce penalties against him. They are going to hold him accountable. Trump has basically declared war on the judicial system, and the judicial system is going to fight back. He has made enemies of the judges who are hearing his cases, and that is devastating for him legally. This creates immediate contempt charges and possible arrest. Judge Chutkan could charge Trump with contempt of court right now. She could file charges. She could order him arrested. Contempt of court is committed in front of a judge. The judge saw it happen. The judge heard the threats. The judge has the authority to immediately hold Trump in contempt and order arrest. Trump could be arrested and jailed for threatening a federal judge. He could be held in federal custody while the trial continues. That is real legal exposure. That is not hypothetical. That is something that could happen tomorrow. This incident is going to accelerate impeachment talks significantly. Trump has now shown that he cannot respect the judicial system. He has shown that he will try to intimidate the court system. That is grounds for impeachment. That is grounds for removal from office. Congress could vote to impeach Trump for threatening a judge. Congress could vote to remove him for contempt of the judicial system. With this video evidence, with this documented behavior, impeachment becomes much more likely. Democrats have ammunition now. They have a clear case. Trump threatened a federal judge in open court. That is impeachable. That is removable. Congress might act on it. This is going to be used in campaign ads constantly. Republicans are going to have a nightmare trying to defend Trump based on this video. How do you defend a video of your candidate threatening a federal judge? You cannot. You can only acknowledge it and hope voters do not care. But voters are going to care. They are going to see that video and be horrified. They are going to see Trump threatening a judge and think he is dangerous. Democrats are going to use this in every campaign ad in every competitive race. This video is going to be everywhere. Every Democratic candidate is going to use it. Every Democratic campaign is going to hammer it. This one outburst could affect the outcome of dozens of races. This shows that Trump is losing control as his legal position deteriorates. Every time he loses in court, he gets more desperate. Every time a judge rules against him, he gets more angry. He is spiraling emotionally and psychologically. He cannot handle legal defeat. He cannot handle judicial authority. He cannot respect the rule of law. And as his legal defeats continue to pile up, the immunity ruling, the financial judgments, the evidence suppression, he is going to continue spiraling. He is going to continue having meltdowns. He is going to continue threatening judges. The situation is going to get worse and worse as his legal position becomes more desperate. This incident is a direct attack on judicial independence and the rule of law. When a sitting president threatens a federal judge in court, that is an attack on the entire judicial system. That is an attempt to undermine judicial independence. That is an attempt to use political power and intimidation to influence court decisions. That is fundamentally anti-democratic. Judicial independence is one of the core pillars of American democracy. Judges have to be able to make decisions without fear of retaliation or threats from powerful people. If judges can be intimidated by the president, then we do not have an independent judiciary. If judges have to worry about threats and retaliation when they rule against the president, the rule of law breaks down. Trump's actions here are directly attacking the foundation of American democracy. He is showing that he views the judicial system as something that should obey him, not as an independent branch that checks his power. He is trying to turn America into an authoritarian system where the leader is above the law and can intimidate judges into doing what he wants. This outburst is going to accelerate the timeline for his legal trials and convictions. Judges do not like being threatened. When a defendant threatens a judge, that judge is going to be very motivated to move the case forward quickly and enforce strict order in the courtroom. Judge Chutkan is probably going to accelerate the trial schedule. She is probably going to impose sanctions against Trump. She is probably going to be less sympathetic to his arguments. She has basically decided she is done being nice to Trump. The gloves are off now. Trump is going to face a judge who is angry at him and who is going to use the power of the court to hold him accountable. His outburst might have just cost him any chance he had of getting favorable rulings. He basically fired any goodwill he had with that judge. He basically guaranteed that Judge Chutkan is going to rule against him on everything. This is the kind of behavior that gets normal people arrested and prosecuted. If you or I walked into a courtroom and screamed at a judge and called her a traitor and threatened her, we would be arrested immediately. We would be charged with contempt of court. We would be facing jail time. We would be facing criminal charges. We would be facing serious legal consequences. But Trump gets to do it because he is the president. That is not justice. That is not equal protection under the law. That is two-tier justice where the president gets special treatment. But the courts are showing that even the president has to follow the law. Even the president can be held accountable. Even the president cannot threaten judges with impunity. Judge Chutkan could still file contempt charges. She could still pursue this legally. Trump could face real consequences for his actions in the courtroom. This incident with Judge Chutkan is going to be looked back on as a pivotal moment in Trump's presidency. This is the moment when he completely lost control in public. This is the moment when millions of Americans saw him threatening a federal judge on video. This is the moment when his instability became undeniable and obvious to everyone watching. This is the moment that changed how people view Trump and view his fitness for office. This one outburst could result in serious contempt charges. This one incident could accelerate impeachment proceedings significantly. This one viral video could change the outcome of the midterms completely. This is a turning point. This is a moment when Trump's presidency started unraveling completely because he could not control himself in a federal courtroom. The video of Trump screaming at Judge Chutkan is going to haunt him forever. It is going to be in every campaign ad. It is going to be replayed on every news network constantly. It is going to be referenced in every article about Trump. It is going to be the defining image of his entire presidency. The image of Trump pointing at a judge and screaming, "I'll have your badge, you're fired, traitor," is the image that voters are going to remember. That is the moment that convinced millions of people that Trump is genuinely unfit for office. That is the moment that drove Democratic turnout. That is the moment that changed American politics fundamentally. In the days and weeks following the courtroom outburst, the political fallout was massive and game-changing. Republicans had to distance themselves from Trump's behavior completely. Party leaders were asked repeatedly to comment on Trump threatening a federal judge. They could not defend it. They had to admit it was highly inappropriate and damaging. Some Republican senators started calling for Trump's resignation. Some representatives started seriously talking about the 25th Amendment removal process. The Republican Party was fracturing because of Trump's unhinged behavior. His own party was starting to turn on him publicly. Independent voters were horrified. Swing voters were completely turned off. Trump's approval ratings tanked immediately. Campaign donations dried up rapidly. Donors did not want to be associated with Trump threatening judges. The entire momentum of the midterm campaign shifted dramatically overnight. Democrats were suddenly heavily favored in races that had been competitive. Trump's courtroom outburst changed the entire political map for the midterms, fundamentally and permanently.